Hi, everyone, and welcome again to Storytime with Miss Laurel. Today, I'm going to be reading another tale from our Treasury of Stories, and this time it's going to be The Tale of Benjamin Bunny. Does that sound very familiar, like someone we might have heard about already? One morning, Benjamin Bunny sat in the sun by the side of the road. He pricked his ears to the trot, 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 trot of a pony and cart. Mr. McGregor was driving the pony cart, and beside him sat Mrs. McGregor, wearing her best bonnet. As soon as they had passed, Benjamin Bunny got an idea. Look, there's Mr. McGregor and his wife. With a hop, skip, and a jump, Benjamin set off to visit his cousins who lived in the woods behind Mr. McGregor's garden. Benjamin's old aunt, old Mrs. Rabbit, made her living by selling mittens and scarves. She also sold herbs, rosemary tea, and lavender. But Benjamin had not come to visit his aunt. He was looking for his cousin Peter. Remember him? He went around to the back of the fir tree and nearly stumbled over Peter. Peter was sitting by himself, and he didn't look too happy. He was dressed only in a red cotton handkerchief, which he held tightly around him. "Peter," whispered Benjamin, "where are your clothes?" Peter told Benjamin how he had been chased through Mr. McGregor's garden and had lost his shoes and coat. Mr. McGregor was using them as a scarecrow in the vegetable garden. Little Benjamin sat down beside his cousin. He told Peter that Mr. and Mrs. McGregor would probably be gone for the whole day because Mrs. McGregor was wearing her best bonnet. He told Peter they could go to Mr. McGregor's garden and rescue Peter's clothes. Peter did think a walk might do him good. Peter and Benjamin climbed to the top of Mr. McGregor's garden wall. They looked down and saw Peter's coat and shoes hanging like a scarecrow. A knitted cap topped off the scarecrow outfit. Benjamin said, "We'll get dirty if we squeeze under the gate. We should climb down the pear tree to get into the garden." Peter fell into the garden head first, but he landed in a lettuce bed that was quite soft. They took Peter's clothes off the scarecrow poles. It had rained during the night, and the shoes were filled with water. His little blue coat had shrunk, and the shiny brass buttons were all missing. Benjamin tried on the cap, but it was too big for him. Now that Peter had his clothes again, they would be able to use the handkerchief for something else. Benjamin began to fill the handkerchief with onions as a present for Peter's mother. He felt perfectly at home here and ate a lettuce leaf. He said he often came to Mr. McGregor's garden with his father to get lettuce for their dinner. Mr. McGregor's lettuce was certainly very tasty. Peter didn't eat anything, though. He was not enjoying himself. He kept hearing noises, and he wanted to go home. Look, there he is, getting some lettuce. Benjamin. The little bunnies knew they would not be able to climb up the pear tree with their bundle of onions. Instead, they walked through the vegetables to the other end of the garden. Soon they were among the flower pots, baskets, and tools, and Peter heard noises more than ever. Suddenly he stopped. His eyes were as big as lollipops. Benjamin took one look, and in no time, he and Peter had hidden themselves and the onions under a large basket. The bunnies had seen a big barn cat napping in the afternoon sun. Danger. The cat awoke and stretched. She walked to the upside-down basket and gave it a sniff. She sat right down on top of the basket. She must have liked the smell of onions. And there she sat for 5 hours. The sun was setting over the tree in the woods, but still the cat sat on top of the basket. Peter and Benjamin were trapped. It was quite dark, and the smell of onions was awful. Peter Rabbit and Benjamin Bunny began to cry. Through their tears, the two bunnies heard a pitter-patter, pitter-patter. Stones were falling from the garden wall. The cat looked up and saw old Benjamin Bunny walking along the top of the wall. He was looking for his son. Old Mr. Bunny was not afraid of cats at all. He jumped from the wall onto the cat and pushed her off of the basket. Then he kicked her into the greenhouse, scratching off a bit of fur, and the cat, she was too surprised to scratch back. After Mr. Bunny had knocked the cat inside the greenhouse, he locked the door. He came right back to the basket and pulled Benjamin and Peter out by the ears. He picked up the bundle of onions and marched the two bad rabbits out of the garden. Old Mr. Bunny scolded them all the way home. He made sure Benjamin and Peter were sorry for their mischief. When Mr. McGregor returned home, he saw several puzzling things. His scarecrow had been robbed of its shoes and jacket, and there were footprints all around it. The footprints were very, very small. Also, he could not understand how the cat could have shut herself into the greenhouse and locked the door from the outside. Old Mrs. Rabbit was so glad to see Peter wearing his shoes and jacket, she quite forgot to scold him for wandering off. She was pleased with the bundle of onions as well. She tied them up and hung them from the kitchen ceiling with her bunches of herbs and lavender. And that is the story of Benjamin Bunny. Thank you so much for joining us for Story Time with Miss Laurel. I hope to see you next time. Bye!